Hey folks! Welcome back to the More Than Paris in France YouTube channel, and today I'm bringing you the third installation of my series How to Move to France and How to Work in France, where I'm talking about being a language assistant for 7 months in France and that amazing opportunity. So in my previous videos in this series, part 1 and part 2, I talked about in general what it's like to be an assistant, and in part 2 I spoke about the housing and transportation and how you can save money and things like that. So now in this part 3, I'm going to talk about the work. What does the work of being a language assistant entail? And so just to recap, if you're under 35 and you're from a list of these countries that I'm going to put right here, and you have some university experience, you can become a language assistant in France for your native language. It's an amazing opportunity, and while the pay is small, you still get 2 months of vacation, 2 months paid vacation. You have full healthcare coverage and a bunch of amazing opportunities at your door. I mean, all of Europe is at your footsteps. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into part 3 of this series, and I will speak to you about the work, exactly what the work entails, what you can be expected to do, what the work might look like, who you're going to work with throughout the different levels. So, 1, 2, 3, on y va! I'm going to talk to you guys quickly about the work, what this job actually entails. So, being a language assistant, as I said, you're working 12 hours a week. The work can look very different depending on the teacher that you're working with, the system the school uses, all sorts of things. So, here's some examples of work that you might end up doing as an assistant. You might end up working with an entire class of students along with their teacher, and you might be sharing information about yourself, about your country, about your culture, or you might be working with half a class, helping the teacher with their English. Like that's happened to me, that you just kind of like sit down in the class. You're just like a human dictionary, basically. So that happens. You could be working with half of a class. I think we're allowed to work with a maximum of 12 students alone because we're not actually teachers and you can't like take responsibility for a class of students. So you might work with 12 students alone for half of the time and then switch halfway through the class and get the other half of students. You might work with smaller groups of students, you might work one-on-one with students. Some of the work that you might have to do might be talking about a holiday or festival in your country, or it might be working with them on something that they like have to present. I had some students who were in high school, the equivalent of high school, upper secondary school, and they went on internships, and when they came back they then had to like write a report. Or I also worked with students who were going onto an internship and had to like write a request to different companies to get to work in this internship. So there are a lot of different options. I've also had to do voice recordings, so the teachers can like add it to their bank of recordings or use it in class. And I also worked with, at one point I worked with a physics teacher for the Euro class that students could go on. That's they mostly like do all of their courses in English, or they mostly do their courses in German, like not French. I would work with a physics teacher who just like needed to clear up some things for his class that he teaches in English. So there are a lot of different options for like what your day can look like. Also, some people work like every single day, like 2 hours here, 1 hour there. Some people work 2 days a week, 3 days a week. It really depends on where the teachers and the schools put you. Or you can end up working, so I kind of mentioned this before, you can end up working in 2 secondary schools, either 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, a middle school and a high school. Or you can end up working in primary school level, and at the primary school level you tend to work in like 2 or 3, not so much 2 but mostly like 3 primary schools in an area. And I actually applied this time to do that, like to work in a primary school, because I've had the experience of now like working in a college and working in a high school. So I wanted that like lower school, like the sweet young ones, and to tell them, like expand their knowledge, tell them about the Caribbean and about my island, my country. So some quick advice. I would say this program is actually really great if you're under 26 years old. Because when you're under 26, there are so many discounts given to youths and to students in Europe. You get discounts on food, you get discounts on transportation, entrance fees to basically any sort of public spaces. So when you're under 26, you get to, like, your money gets to go further. If I get through, I'm going to be doing this as somebody who's over 26 years old, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out and how the money, like how I'm able to stretch the money, because I think that's like a really big difference as well. You get so many discounts when you're under 26, and when you're over 26, like, yeah, your money just has to go further. I would say also, like, while your level of French doesn't need to be great, while you can get into the program with like a lower level of French, I think it has, like, your level of French and your confidence in your ability to speak French are going to have a great impact on how that first couple of weeks and potentially how your entire experience pans out. Because in the first couple of weeks you have to open a bank account, you have to do you have to get your visa validified, you have to get like an apartment to rent if you have to go down that route. You also have to get like set up schedules with your teacher, you have to get like a cell phone plan. All of these different things, they demand you to understand French. Of course, you can use Google Translate, but are you going to be able to use Google Translate in a place where there's no Wi-Fi and you don't as yet have a local SIM card? So these are just things you need to pay attention to. When I did it, I honestly did not have the B1 level of French. I was at the time when I applied, I was living in a francophone country, well, in a francophone state, in Montreal, in Quebec, and that helped with my application. I was also doing like a year-long intensive French course, and I had two of my teachers like sign off on that for me. You can still like get in. What I'm trying to say is that you might still get in without actually having that B1 level of French, but it's going to be tough. And if you're not confident, or if you don't make yourself confident in that like ability to like piece together different words and try to make yourself understood, it's going to be hard. So I'd say living away from home, like for me that was nothing. I loved it, but it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Living away from home, money, like not having enough, not having like proper money management, and your language level or your confidence to speak in French. So if you're under 35, especially under 26, but still up to 35, and you want the experience to live in France, you want the experience to have that culture. Things have been like weird, and you know there aren't many jobs, or you're not getting through to other things. Like, this can be the perfect thing to just change the direction of your life, to give you a whole new experience, to help you improve your French language skills so much. You will learn so much in the time that you're here, and not here like in France, and I think it would just be amazing. I think it's, well, I mean, I obviously love being an assistant. Again, you get what you put into it. There's so many other things and so many other videos that I want to make on these experiences of being an assistant, but for now, like, this is a main one, just to give you an introduction to the program. Obviously, I haven't talked about everything. It's impossible to talk about every single aspect of being a language assistant in France. Alright, I hope that was super helpful for you. You can check out part 1 and part 2 in the links in the description, as well as at the cards at the end of this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. As I said, I've done this twice and I am about to do it a third time. I would love to share more about my experience. If you have any questions in particular, if you just want to know more about it, you can just leave a comment and I'll respond. Also, there's my email address for this channel down there that you can use to contact me. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe if this video was in any way helpful to you. Please leave a like, and if in general things about France interest you, subscribe. Thanks. Bye. À la prochaine.